We were wondering about that. We were wondering about that too.
Mhm. I thought you said last week it was he.
It is.
What
Okay.
happened? Why not he?
Okay, so we're at this word here.
Yeah,
And again, this is a case where the Torah has a vav, but later, and the Masoretes are working off of tradition, traditionally received, but the reference to the it or the she or the pronoun is eretz, and eretz was determined to be a feminine noun once the grammar was more fully set rather than a bit fluid, probably in the older oral tradition. So it may have been who, it may have been a leaky quill that extended the yud down, but in any case, the pronunciation of the word, even though it's written who, that is it masculine, it's he, it feminine.
I think the confusion really was people thought it should have been heave instead
Yes,
of
it
he.
should have been, except that that's not a word.
Right.
we have that problem, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's he because it's it feminine, even though it's written who, it masculine. There are a number of places in the Torah, this is not one of them, where the written and the spoken don't match.
But if
And where it's an unusual one, they'll give you in the Chumash, they'll give you in a bracket the pronunciation as opposed to the way it's written.
but Rabbi, if it was who, wouldn't the dot be to the left of it?
If there was who, then there would be a dot in the vav.
Yeah,
Okay.
But the
if you
Torah,
have-
remember, the Torah doesn't write the dots.
but if you does the letter the head, does it ever have that with a dot to the left it without the vav?
No,
Okay.
no, the dot has, the vav, if there's going to be a dot in the middle, the dot vav has to be there to hold the dot.
Okay.
But at times, the Torah writes that combination of consonants, and it's pronounced who because it's referring to a masculine noun. And there are times that it's pronounced he, even though it's written that way because it's referring to a feminine noun.
Okay. Who is he?
all
and
right,
he?
if you say so.
Yes, I didn't
think
write
the
the
main
original
confusion-
scroll.
I think the main confusion
I was not there with the Masoretes when they were creating their medical rules.
I think the main confusion was the fact that people thought it should have been a vav, that they would say heave.
Right,
That's what-
normally it would have been,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but if it was heave, actually, then they would have put a shva under the vav.
Ah,
Okay, thank
Because
you.
remember, a
right.
consonant in the middle of a consonant in the middle of a word has to have a vowel, even if it's a shva.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So if you want the consonant pronounced, you have to stick a vowel on it.
All right,
That's the same thing that happens here, for example, where the yud is silent, because that ed doesn't take a yud ever, but the yud doesn't have a consonant, a vowel under it, so therefore there's nothing you can do with it. So it's not avadeyecha or anything like that, it's just avadecha. Okay, so
How do you say the sixth word in the first line?
okay, so in this particular case, again, notice the aleph doesn't have a vowel with it. So you just got to ignore it completely.
Do you say Banu or
Exactly.
Banu? And I noticed in the word come, it's always, you pronounce the first syllable ba, stress that as opposed to the last syllable, is that right?
Yeah. Banu, we came. So Joseph has, remember, brought 5 of the probably brothers, but 5 men to meet with Pharaoh, to go through the whole prepared script of why we belong in Goshen. And the boys, the men in talking to Pharaoh are continuing their little story. So Vayomru, that's the they said. The they is those five that Joseph brought, the shills, with the scripted, prepared discussion. Vayomru el paro, lagur ba'aretz banu, ki ein mir'eh latzon, asher la'avadecha, ki chaved hara'av, be'eretz Canaan, ve'ata yeshvu na avadecha be'eretz Goshen. So they're long-winded. Vayomru el paro. So they said to Pharaoh, to Paro, lagur, to traverse, to journey in, to have temporary residential visas granted.
So that's the same one with Ger, right?
Yeah, Ger is one who has come from a foreign place,
Okay.
a resident alien.
Hmm.
Ger v'toshav is a resident alien who has settled.
Hmm.
So we are currently on immigration status. Ba'aretz, in the land. Banu, we came. So we came to do this. We came just for temporary dwelling. Why do we need temporary dwelling? Ki ein mir'eh latzon, and mir'eh, notice the root is the shepherding root, the ro'eh. So there is not shepherdingness to the flock. Asher la'avadacha, that is to your servants, that is, that your servants have, our flocks. We don't have shepherdingness in our land. We came down here, ki chaved hara'av, because heavy is the famine, the Eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. So the famine is really bad. Chaved is heavy.
So, so Son is servants.
So,
right?
no, Tzon is flock. Avadecha is your servants. The flocks to your servants. That is your servants' flock, the ones that belong to us. Because to the flocks that are to your servants, that we own, there is no mir'eh, there is no shepherdingness. Because the famine has really hit us bad up in Canaan.
So what is the word for famine?
Ra'av,
Ra'av.
the famine or the drought. And the famine is chaved, really heavy, really striking us to the core. The Eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan. The atah, and this atah with an ayin means now. Atah with an aleph is you. Atah with an ayin is now.
Where's,
Hmm.
can you highlight?
Third line, third word.
The
So-
atah, and now. Yeshvu na, we will settle, or dwell, or sit. We will dwell, please. And who is the we? Avadecha, your servants. Be'eretz Goshen, in the land of Goshen. So this is all Joseph setting them up to settle in Goshen, across the delta, across the river, on the other side of the tracks from the regular Egyptians. Again, the story does not give us Joseph's reasons. The story tells what the reason that Joseph gives, but doesn't tell us that that's the real reason Joseph has. The reason that he gives is that's the better grazing land, and they can claim to need to be there because they do the abominable work. They are the abominable shepherds.
Rabbi Sam, here in Eugene, we have a town called Goshen that's just on the outskirts of Eugene. It's like across I-5, so it's separate and it's pretty rural and it's small.
I bet if you look, there are a number of Goshens.
Oh yeah,
in-
there are Goshens all over the place. And I wouldn't be surprised if the people who settled that area named it because it was on the outskirts and it was sort of, and wanted to keep it as the rural area. So settle us in Goshen. And verse 5, Vayomer Paro el Yosef lemor avicha va'achecha ba'u elecha. Now we don't know, as we didn't know with Joseph, is Pharaoh using an interpreter? Are the men actually not speaking to Pharaoh? They're speaking to the interpreter who's speaking to Pharaoh. So that when Pharaoh answers in verse 5, Pharaoh speaks to Joseph, not to the men. So Pharaoh may be skipping the interpreter and talking to Joseph, who understands the Egyptian, and not talking to the men. Or is Pharaoh talking to Joseph because Joseph is the higher up of the group of people who are there? But in any case, the men talk to Pharaoh and Pharaoh talks to Joseph. So Pharaoh does not answer the men, Pharaoh answers Joseph. But that could be a set of hierarchy or priorities of personhood, or it could be interpreter versus non-interpreter. Pharaoh doesn't say to Joseph, tell your brothers this. Pharaoh says to Joseph, Vayomer Paro el Yosef. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, Lemor, as follows, saying, Avicha ve'achecha ba'u elecha, your father and your brothers came to me. Which is a pretty obvious statement since Joseph brought them there.
To me.
Elecha, oh, to you rather, came to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, your fathers and your brothers came to you. Elecha, to you. They have come down to you. You're in charge of them. Eretz Mitzrayim, verse 6.
What's Ba'u?
Ba'u, they came. Up here, Banu, we came. Ba'u, they came.
Elecha to you?
To you. So your father and your brothers have come to you. Six, Eretz Mitzrayim lifanecha hi, b'meitav haaretz, hoshev et avicha ve'et achecha, yeshvu be'eretz Goshen, ve'im yadata ve'yesh bam anshe chayil, v'samtam sarei mikneh al asher li.
Long sentence.
Long instructions by Pharaoh to Joseph. Your brothers came to you, and now Eretz Mitzrayim, land of Egypt, lifanecha, before you. It. Literally, land of Egypt before you, it. English, the land of Egypt is before you. It is before you, if you want to include the it.
And that's before, in front of, not.
Right, in front of, exactly. Lifanecha, to your face.
Why do we usually see haaretz? And this starts with eretz.
Well, it would be haaretz.
Yeah.
Because haaretz is when it's just the land. When it's land of something, it's eretz the something.
Oh, okay.
So Eretz Goshen, Eretz Canaan, Eretz Mitzrayim. That's why people say land of Goshen. It's literally Eretz Goshen, land of Goshen, not the land of Goshen.
B'meitav.
So Eretz Mitzrayim lefanecha, so all of the land of Egypt lies before you. It's out there in front of you. The root of b'meitav is tav. Tov. Good.
Good.
Meitav makes the good a verb. Cause to be good, or goodness. B'meitav is in goodness, in a goodness. So the goodness of the land. B'meitav ha'aretz, in goodness of the land.
Like the best land?
Exactly. The best, the prime quality land. Grade A. The best of the land is before you. Hoshev comes from the same root, yashav, lashevet, to sit, to dwell. They up here said, yeshvu, let us dwell, please. We will dwell, please. Hoshev is caused to be dwelled. So settle.
Settle them.
Settle avicha and achecha. Settle your brother and your father and your brothers. Yeshvu be'eretz Canaan, settle them, and they will then be settled in the land of Goshen. And now, ve'im yedata, and if you knew, usually translated as if you know, but literally you knew. So if you have awareness of, if you knew, v'yesh bam anshe chayil, and there is in them men of valor. So anshe chayil, men of chayil, might or valor. As we say, eshet chayil, a woman of valor. So it's anshe chayil. So yesh bam, if there is in them. So if you have any knowledge of the fact that there is among your father and brothers men of valor, v'sam tam sarei mikneh al asher li, v'sam tam, and you will put them. Samta, you will put them. Sarei mikneh, ministers of cattle.
Oh, sorry, Minister.
Cattle princes. You will put them as ministers of the cattle al asher li, on that to me. That is, you'll make them cattle herders for my cattle. So they're not only going to take their cattle, but if you know any really trustworthy, good, valorous men among your brothers, put them in charge of my cattle too.
So what's mikneh?
Mikneh is the cattle. That's the generic term for the herds.
Oh, because we had zone somewhere else.
Yeah, tzon is flock, mikneh is herd. Generally, tzon is sheep and cattle, and mikneh is cattle. But
Could it
my
also-
herd,
Could it also mean livestock?
yeah, livestock.
Okay.
But generally, the mikneh is the herd and the tzon is the flock. So yes, you're gonna take, if you got any trustworthy brothers there or among their servants, put them in charge of my livestock, my herds. You know, the ones I dreamed about way back 2 years ago, came up out of the Nile. Again, no statement as to why Pharaoh needs Hebrew cattle herders, but this could play into that statement that take the Egyptians who have been the cattle herders and have been abominated by it and move them out so that the real abominable people can take care of them. But the only statement about cattle herding being an abomination is the statement that Joseph made to his brothers. Pharaoh doesn't say why he wants to replace his regular cattle herders, his livestock men, with these Canaanite, Hebrew livestock men. But since it's not stated why, we get to say anything we want about it. 7. Vayave Yosef et Yaakov aviv, vayamidehu lifnei Pharaoh, vayavarech Yaakov et Paro. 7. So Vayave, again, caused to come or brought Yosef et Yaakov. So Joseph brought Yaakov, Aviv, his father. Up till this point, he had brought just 5 of his brothers or 5 of the men. Now he specifically brings Yaakov. And again, between verse 6 and verse 7, we don't have a statement that the brothers have now been dismissed to go do the settling. And now in a separate journey, Joseph brings his father. Or Joseph brought the 5 men and his brother, and father's been sitting out in the waiting room. And now Joseph brings father in. So if we're staging this, there's a lot of directors' desire as to how they stage it. But in any case, he brings Yaakov Aviv, his father, Vaya'amidehu. Amad, stand. Ya'amed, caused to stand. Ya'amidehu, caused him to stand. So Joseph brings Yaakov, his father, and stands him lifnei Pharaoh, in front of Pharaoh, before Pharaoh. So he parades his father in, stands him up before Pharaoh, and the first thing that happens is Vayavarech Yaakov et Paro. Joseph blesses Paro.
Wait, what?
No, Jacob.
Rather, Jacob blesses Paro. Right.
Yeah.
Jacob, the father, blesses Pharaoh.
No, doesn't Pharaoh bless Jacob?
Says Vayavarech Yaakov et Paro. Jacob is doing the blessing. Paro is the blessed.
Okay.
It seems a little cheeky.
Sucking up to him.
Oh, wait,
Second,
but
There's that, yeah.
this is
Second.
nothing
All
like
of this
saying thank you.
long-winded stuff, and all of a sudden, Jacob is brought in, stood up before Pharaoh, and just 4 words, Vayavarech Yaakov et Paro.
Well, it's probably like paying him homage and bless you, king, this and such, you know?
Yeah.
That's probably what
favors.
it is.
Yeah, I
He gave
mean,
him the best hand.
it seems pretty simple
Maybe
that it's just thank you.
Bowed.
You know, bless you for giving us this land. It's like saying thank you.
Yeah, either that or, Jacob stands up and the first thing Pharaoh does is sneezing. But yes, notice, the first thing, I mean, he doesn't say, thank you, Pharaoh, for taking care of my son all these years, and we don't know what the blessing is. A simple statement, Jacob blessed Pharaoh. Eight, Vayomer Paro el Yaakov, Kama Yemei Shnei Chayecha. And in response to the blessing that Yaakov just did to Paro, Vayomer Paro el Yaakov, now Pharaoh says to Yaakov, so tell me, old man, how old are you? Kama, how many? Yemei, days of, Shnei, years of, Chayecha, your life.
You think
Literally, how many are the days of the years of your life?
Do you think Pharaoh understood the Hebrew, or did Joseph translate?
Again, we have no idea if Yaakov blesses Pharaoh and the interpreter translates it to Pharaoh. We have all of these interactions originally with Joseph's brothers, and then now probably with Jacob and Pharaoh, where we had one statement of interpreter. And we never get it again, but it would not be surprising that all of this is actually being done through the royal interpreter. Does Pharaoh know Canaanite Hebrew? Does Jacob know Pharaonic Egyptian? We know that Jacob's father and grandfather, rather, spent time in Egypt. So was Egyptian known within the family? Had there been trading going on before that with Egypt? We get none of that historical context.
Maybe it was all Esperanto.
Maybe the author didn't care about all these details, just telling the
Well,
story.
of course, I mean, this is our story, it's not their story, so we really don't care what was happening as far as Pharaoh goes.
And they didn't
again,
get to write graduate student papers on this.
Yes, we have abbreviated language and we have expanded language. We have too much story and then we have not enough story.
Now, can I ask, I don't remember the reunion between Jacob and Joseph. Is this the first time they're together, or was there a reunion? I'm sorry, I totally
Yeah,
forgot.
there's no statement yet. There will be later. And in the blue story, there's a different version of how it all happened.
Ah,
So he's introducing his father, but the father and son haven't spoken yet?
Well, he sees him in a previous one and says, "Oh, I can die now. I've seen my son."
Yeah.
But we don't get any real long statement about that reunion.
mm,
But yeah, they're all brought down on those chariots that were sent up to get them.
Probably
The
he had
wagon
on a
train
little
arrived in Goshen.
Egyptian hat kind of thing, and he wasn't obvious at first.
Right.
Hmm.
So how old are you? 9 is Yaakov's answer. Vayomer Yaakov el Paro. And we'll notice we still get this expanded language. Jacob said to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Jacob. Jacob said to Pharaoh. In previous places we said, and he said, and he said, and he said, and he said. So here we're very clearly being told who's speaking and who's listening.
mhm.
Vayomer Yaakov el Paro. And this again would be probably dramatic tension. So when you're reading this, verse 8, Vayomer Paro el Yaakov. Prior to that, Vayavarech Yaakov et Paro. Vayomer Paro el Yaakov. Kama yemei shnei chayecha. Vayomer Yaakov el Paro. Yemei shnei migurai. Notice now it's not the days of the years of my life, but the days of the years of my journeyings.
Oh, right.
The gur, the travels. Because remember, he's journeyed from Canaan up to Padan Aram, back down to Canaan, now down to, and are all around Canaan, and now down to Egypt. So the days of the years of my journeys, Shloshim 30, Uma'at Shana, and 100 year. Now a little verbal play, Ma'at, with an aleph, 100. Ma'at, with an ayin and a tet, little, small, short.
Oh,
So I've lived 130 years. a short and bad time. Ma'at v'ra'im, short and bad.
Good.
Hayu were yemei shnei chayai, the days of the years of my life.
Could you do that again from the beginning of the line?
Yep. So I'll read the whole thing again.
You may.
Verse 9, Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, Yemei Shnei Megurai, Shloshim Uma'at Shana, Ma'at V'ra'im Chayu Yemei Shnei Chayai, V'lo Hisigu et Yemei Shnei Chayei Avotai, Bimei Megureihem. So verse 9, Vayomer Yaakov el Paro, Yaakov says to Paro, answer the question, how old are you? Is 3 more lines of answer. How old are you? Not I am 130 years old, but the days of the years of my journeys, my life journey has taken 130 years. Shloshim uma'at shana, 30 and 100 year. Ma'at v'ra'im, we're down here.
So,
Ma'at v'ra'im, short and evil, bad.
Why short?
Short, ma'at, a little, small.
So,
But is that a short life, is he saying?
Yes,
Or
I've had a very short life. Brief. Brief and bad. I'm 130 years old, and it's been brief and bad.
Was the journey or the life that was bad?
Well, the journeys, yeah, right here, it's the journeys of my life. The journeys of my year have been brief and bad.
so
But brief and bad were Hayu, Yemei Shnei Chayai, were the days of the years of my life.
mhm.
So I've been on this earth wandering around for 130 years, and Ma'at V'ra'im Hayu, short and bad were Yemei Shnei Hayai, the days of the years of my life.
Wow.
Below,
so Ma'at modifies the Shana and the Ra'im, the Yemei.
So Ma'at V'ra'im, short, brief and bad were Hayu, Yemei Shnei Chayai, and here it parallels Kama Yemei Shnei Chayecha, here it's Yemei Shnei Chayai, the days of the years of my life. They were brief and bad,
Hmm.
troubled,
Mhm.
weighed heavily upon me. V'lo hisigu, and here now, and I have not, and they, that is the days, the years, lo hisigu, have not approached, did not get close to. So the years of my life have not even gotten close to Yemei Shnei Chayei Avotai, the days of the years of the life of my fathers. So my fathers were a lot older than me when they died. And we know that Abraham lived the longest, Isaac second longest, and Yaakov the shortest. I mean, they all lived well past 120.
well,
and what are the last 2 words?
And then the last 2 words, Bimei Migorehem, in the days of Migorehem, their journeys.
Oh, with the gore in it, or their journeys.
So the journeys of my life have been 130 years. My whole life has been nothing but short time and bad times. And they have not even gotten close to the ages, the days of the years of the lives of my father in the days of their life journeys.
so the mem is for im, or whatever, the mem is for
Migore is the journeyings. It takes the gur and makes it into of travel or journey into a noun journeys.
And the mem is to be in.
The mem at the end is there.
No, I mean, the first mem, is that?
First mem is part of the word journey.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Megur, megurim,
agree.
journeyings. So their journeys. Their lives were longer and a lot better than mine, sure. Abraham kicks a couple of kids out, tries to kill one of them.
He's complaining.
Yitzchak has a whole problem with brothers at each other's throats. Yeah, their lives were a lot better than mine.
Why would he be there in front of Pharaoh, the boss of his son, who hasn't seen his favorite son, and complaining to Pharaoh?
Exactly. Right after he blessed Pharaoh.
Yeah.
It's
He
odd.
blessed Pharaoh. Pharaoh says, so old man, how old are you? And he gives this whole long-winded, oi, don't ask.
It's odd that
But as
he
long as you asked. Yeah,
Well,
Emily,
since you asked.
Emily, you want to, yeah.
appreciate anything in his life. He doesn't see anything good in all his life. That seems odd.
Certainly not in verse 9.
I think many old men like to complain about their children.
Old women don't.
Oh, yeah, but they
do
don't get to speak much in these stories.
Right,
They
different kind of complaint.
They complain about the daughters-in-law.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, wait till you get to Jacob blessing his sons.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It's not very happy blessings of his sons that he does either.
Oh, my.
But in any case, yeah, he blesses Pharaoh, and then Pharaoh says, so, how old are you, old man? He says, oi, don't ask. What a life. I shouldn't live such a life. I shouldn't wish this life on my enemy. Oh, Pharaoh. Maybe that's the blessing. Oh, Pharaoh, you shouldn't have a life like I had.
Very Yiddish.
One of my homiletic and midrash professors at HUC said, if you really want to understand the Torah, you have to read it in the original Yiddish.
That's nice.
Oy vey.
All right, verse 10. And after complaining, Vayevarech Yaakov et Paro, and he blessed him again. Yaakov again blesses Paro. Vayetze milifnei Paro, and he exits stage left. And he goes out from before Pharaoh. Doesn't say he was dismissed.
Uh-oh.
He blesses him and he leaves.
He fetches, he blesses, he fetches, and then he blesses and leaves.
Exactly. That's the story of Yaakov and Paro with Joseph there. Again, with or without an interpreter, we don't know. Is Joseph doing the interpreting? Are they
I
speaking directly?
I can just see Joseph.
Exactly. Dad,
Try saying, Dad,
Oh,
you're
Yaakov.
embarrassing me. You're
thought we were
embarrassing
trying to ingratiate ourselves with Pharaoh.
And so what's the second to last word mean?
From his face.
Milifne, from before, from in front of.
So are there any theories about the counting of the years in these works? Like, for instance, if there was so much climate change from this time, you would think, well, maybe there weren't seasonal changes, and so they counted years in a different way. Are there any theories about that?
There were
Plenty,
seasonal changes because of the Nile
right.
rising and falling depending on the season.
And
Well,
in fact,
because
Egypt had a 365-day calendar. It was the Babylonians who had a 12 lunar month calendar.
Hmm.
Yes, there are many theories, all of which try to explain that these numbers are accurate.
I see.
The best theory I like is the numbers weren't intended to be taken literally.
So if you want a kvetch, you give a lower year than your father and grandfather kvetched. right?
Well, yes, and I mean, if you want, if you have a lot more years than anybody listening to the story, and you're still kvetching.
Yaakov is quite a character, we know that.
Yes,
Mhm.
but the theory would generally be that by the time that these stories are being told, which would be much more in the Psalmic period, when we know that they knew that the best age a person could attain to was 70 or 80. And that was only if you survived the childhood and young adulthood illnesses and everything.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
violence, and violence.
10.
That these were ages that were projected backwards. Ah, it was so much better back in the old days than it is now.
So
Like them to be like we were, perfect in every day.
Yes. One other comment about the last three words. Vayetze milifnei Paro is words that are used again in the book of Esther.
Oh,
When it says Mordechai Yetze milifnei Hamelech. So there's a little bit of a Esther story parallel to this encounter between Jacob and Pharaoh.
But all they're saying is, and she left him. No, she went away. I mean, you can imagine with all the words in the Torah, there'll be many phrases like that repeated, right?
Yes. However, the book of Esther people knew the Torah really well and might have taken a phrase
Mhm.
specifically from this encounter to parallel with. It may be a coincidence, but it may be very intentional. When the book of Esther was being told, the people would generally have known this passage from the book of Genesis.
Mhm.
I just can't believe that Jacob is complaining like this. And I mean, here he goes through consciousness raising, he's grappling with an angel and and it seems like his trajectory of his life, he's kind of gaining consciousness. And then here he is towards the end and he's saying, my life was terrible. Like he has no spiritual awareness of growth or anything. It seems odd.
And the rabbis actually pick up on that. And of course, we have the Yaakov versus Yisrael. And for the rabbis, when he's Yisrael, he's reflecting on that higher sense of spiritual awareness that he gained. When he's Yaakov, he's backsliding.
Right.
Interesting.
Sounds very human.
Because in our stories that we've been reading, sometimes it says Yisrael and sometimes it still says Yaakov.
Mm-hmm.
And the kvetching guy is always Yaakov, not Yisrael.
Mhm.
It may be that Pharaoh was of a comparable age
Yes.
and they could whine together
Yeah.
about the flaws of the children.
Two old guys sitting together at the booth at Cairo McDonald's.
Yeah, whining and
As
drinking
peers
coffee.
with one another.
Or maybe they're drinking wine as they
Lactose.
WINE drink as they WH.
And you want some cheese with that wine?
As they drink more wine, he becomes Israel again. He doesn't pitch as much. He just, oh, you know what? Things are really not so bad.
Well, let's see what you have in store for you next week.
Slowly. Will you read more slowly?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so here we go. Verse 11.
It's fun.
Vayoshev Yosef et Aviv ve'et Echav vayiten lahem achuzah be'eretz Mitzrayim be'metav haaretz be'eretz Ramses ka'asher tziva Pharaoh, and suddenly we get a new place mentioned.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is this like the Ramesses?
Well, Ramses is going to be one of the cities we'll talk about next week, one of the cities that they are involved with in Exodus.
Right, with the you know, that they talk about Ramsey,
Right.
yeah,
So
right.
they're being settled in Ramses. Verse 12. Vayichalkel Yosef et Aviv ve'et Echav ve'et kol Beit Aviv lechem lefi hataf. 13. The lechem ein bechol haaretz ki chaved haraav ma'od vatela eretz Mitzrayim ve'eretz Canaan mipnei haraav. 14. Veilaket Yosef et kol hakesef hanimsa ve'eretz Mitzrayim uve'eretz Canaan bashever asher hem shovrim vayave Yosef et hakesef beta Pharaoh vayitom hakesef me'eretz Mitzrayim ume'eretz Canaan vayavohu chol Mitzrayim el Yosef lemor hava lanu lechem v'lama namut negdecha ki afes kasef. 16. Vayomer Yosef havu miknechem ve'etna lachem v'miknechem im afes kasef. So now we're back to the doling out of the stores and the selling off of what people have to do to buy food during these next 5 years. And Joseph gets, as we'll find out next week, all the money of Egypt and Canaan come to Joseph. And he pauperizes everybody. That's going to be our next several weeks. The draining of the GDP into Pharaoh's welfare.